human-centric design. Just go to slideshow. Just go to slideshow current. Yeah, just put the Vitruvian Man up for me and go slideshow. That's cool. All right. So I want to start by asking you folks some questions. How many of you feel completely fulfilled in your career today? You truly, genuinely, deeply in your heart and your soul feel like you have self-actualized? Anybody? Yeah? Okay. So tell us why. What is it about what you found that has given you that profound sense of satisfaction?
To be honest, I realized that I'm, in a sense, fundamentally incompetent. This is the bar, I'm here, I have to hit the bar. And if I'm not hitting the bar, it's not the bar that's the problem, it's me that's the problem.
Okay.
And that to me is about as complicated as I want to make things, and that's what my philosophy is.
Okay. All right. Anybody else feel as if you have gotten to a point where you're in the state of flow, where you love whatever? Anybody feel the opposite? You feel stuck. You feel stuck. Where do you feel stuck, Todd?
So I've reached a certain level in my career.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is a challenge for me to get to that next level.
Okay. Okay. And is it a sense of not knowing what the options are, or not having the financial backup, if you will, to be able to explore new options? Where does the big obstacle come from?
Yeah, I think some of it is finances, but also some of it is I think perhaps like mentoring and or advice.
Okay, cool. Who else? I saw a bunch of hands, but let me, yeah, please.
I guess it's like problems that I face, I feel like, is that like, so you have, when you're in high school, you have an idea of what you want to do, so then you go to college,
Yeah.
and then you spend all that time learning in college,
Yeah.
and then you learn about new stuff, and then
Right.
you realize that like, oh, maybe there's another direction I want to take, so then you kind of go off to the side,
Yeah.
and like, you do grad school, then you spend
Yeah.
more money, more time in
Yeah.
grad school,
Right.
and then it's like, and you learn more stuff, and you realize like, oh, this is like another direction,
Right.
and it's kind of the issue where, but by then it's like you're starting to kind of like, you need, for any job, they're going to ask for 3 to 5 years experience, and if you keep switching directions, you're never really good.
Right, exactly.
So then you just kind of,
So you can't, you're not building a prototype of your life when you're 16, and you can't fail forward because you've got to invest 4 years in your university degree, and then you jump into a career, right? So there's a huge catch-22 here.
right, there's an issue like things that exist, it did exist back when I was in high school, technically, but like, because the smartphone didn't really exist, it wasn't as popular, so it wasn't considered an option.
Yeah, okay. Cool. So one of the things that makes me very sad is to see the survey results when professional people like you, who have gotten university degrees, many of whom gone on to get master's degrees, have invested a lot in their lives and their careers, and yet they are totally disengaged in their profession. They go to work not because they love it, but because they are looking to create, they're looking to pay their mortgage, pay their kids' tuition, and they are stuck. Okay? Why do so many people go and work on open source projects? Why do so many people volunteer their time in nonprofits and NGOs? Okay? Why do people take online courses without getting any credit? Right? People have an extraordinary capacity to contribute. They have been blessed with extraordinary gifts and talents and energy. And yet it's a horrific embarrassment to me as someone who, amongst other things, has been a professor of management for 20 years, to see how terribly unskilled most managers are. Okay? And I say that because when I look at, as an example, the Australian company Atlassian. Does anybody know Atlassian? Atlassian makes products like Jira and Bitbucket. They're an Australian company that went public on the NASDAQ within the last year. There's a fascinating case study from Atlassian where once a quarter they run an internal hackathon for their employees. And on that one day, every 90 days, they get more productivity out of their employees than they do on the other 89 days of the quarter. And you have to ask yourself the question, what the hell value is a manager creating when the only day that they really get huge peak productivity is the day that the managers get out of the way and give the employees the autonomy to practice what they want to practice, okay? So let me share some stories of students, because I'm lucky enough, I've been teaching as a professor for 20 years, I'm an entrepreneur. I'll tell you my story in a few minutes. But I've had the privilege of getting to literally touch over 10,000 master's students over 20 years. And I'm often struck by a consistent question, which is, Professor Mike, what should I do for a living? Now you can imagine how crazy that question is, okay? I mean, yes, I might get connected to some of my students in a deeper way than is your typical professor-student relationship. But who am I to tell someone what choice they should or should not make in their career, right? And what I say is, listen, I can't possibly answer. It's the most personal question that anybody can ever be asked. But I can ask you questions that will help you identify where you might start to put your time, okay? And that's very important. So I look at I taught in MIT for a long time. I taught in the MIT Entrepreneurship Development Program. It's an executive ed program. And I brought in, we bring in about 300 people for a week. And one of the people that came to my class was an Italian who grew up in Colombia. His name was Antonio. And Antonio really wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I'm a startup guy, and he was very articulate, very hardworking guy. And I did something I almost never do. I brought him into my startup, even though he had no startup experience. Right? He was that good. But Antonio, it turns out, is a much better consultant than he is an entrepreneur. He is analytical to a fault. Okay? He cannot execute at the speed that startups need to execute at. He's constantly running more numbers, more models, more scenarios. So as much as I tried to protect him, at some point the board finally said, Mike, you got to let this guy go. And I did. I regarded him almost like a son. And I said, promise me, Antonio, you will not go take another job at a startup. What do you think Antonio did? He took another job at a startup. And about 6 months later, I get a phone call from the CEO of the startup saying, tell me about Antonio. And as he started to share his story about Antonio, it was exactly the story that I had experienced. Okay? Just because you want to do something doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing to do. Right? That's one example. Now, very smart, very talented Chinese woman, Christina, had worked at Cargill for 12 years. Anybody know Cargill? Cargill is an extremely well-run company. Great culture. In many ways, it's sort of it echoes General Electric culture. It's all about best practices, professionalism, all of those things. High levels of constant training, right? So she struggles because, one, she's learning English for the first time. She's used to being in the food and agricultural industry, so when she graduates with her MBA, out of fear, she takes the first job offered to her. It's with an extremely dysfunctional and horrifically managed company. She lasts no more than 6 months. And every single day that she was there was a hellish experience because she was so much beyond their caliber that they resented her and they tried to dampen her life. Okay? Anything she tried to do, they sabotaged. And now, thank goodness, she's on her feet. She's in Silicon Valley, and she just got a working visa. And she's on her way to, I think, the type of professional opportunity that she has worked so hard for. But she did this not out of anything other than fear. Okay? And I'll share one last story of where the challenges are, and then I'll tell you some happy ending stories as well. So the last story is around a young African woman who is an absolute dynamo, right? She has a social conscience that is extraordinary. And if you get to know this woman, you know that she will not abide by anything other than the truth, no matter what, no matter who she may insult by telling the truth, right? So at the end of my leadership class, we start going, I lead students to an exercise, and they tell me about what they're going to do after school. And what we do is we look at films on Mandela and Lincoln, and we look at some of the great leaders. And I ask them to, tell us about the leadership styles that inspire them and how they're going to make those styles their own. And then combined with a lot of feedback they get from their peers in terms of their own management style, what path do you want to be on? And she says that she's going to go work for the United States Air Force, okay? And first I thought she was joking, because I could not imagine a person who would have a poorer fit working for the United States Air Force than this young woman, this dynamo. And when I called her on it, she was stunned. And then she came back 2 days later and she said, of course you're right. What am I thinking, right? So we all get in our own way. Now let me share some counterexamples. An Egyptian medical doctor named Omar winds up in my design thinking class. And I instantly see this guy's got immense energy, and I just love this kid. So he was a doctor. He specialized in organ transplants. He came to the U.S. He was working at the hospital at Tufts, and he said, Mike, for every hour I spend in the operating theater, putting a new kidney or liver in someone's body, and I see that magic moment when the organ gets red and I know that it's going to be okay, I spend 600 hours doing paperwork. Okay? 600 hours complying with this regulatory body and that regulatory body in the hospital, and I just can't take it. I became a doctor because I wanted to help